Hello, everybody. My name is Joseph Baca, and today I'll be talking to you a little bit about Chapter 22 from the Western Music History book that we are using in 302 here. And Chapter 22, well, actually, just a recap on the last chapter, Chapter 21, we talked a little bit about the classical era and the lead and some opera seria, opera comique, and opera buffa. And that all leads into the next chapter, which is instrumental music, the sonata, the symphony, and the concerto. Now, I really enjoyed this chapter a lot. This was one of my favorite chapters of the semester because it covered so much about instrumental music, which is what I am studying. And I love listening to symphonies too. So it was really cool to learn about the back history just a little bit more because, after all, the more we know about what we're performing, the better. So to start off, um, this chapter started talking about the piano, which I don't know too much about the piano, so it was really cool to learn about it. I just know it's really pretty when it's played well, or even when it's not played well, it's still kind of cool. So the piano essentially replaced the harpsichord and the clavichord as favorite instrument, and it's a lot more accessible, and it's played a little bit more sweetly than the harpsichord and the clavichord, and also just all this depends on the player as well. And I say a little bit more sweetly. It's a little bit more tender as you play it. As the hammer strikes the string, it creates this amazing effect that you wouldn't get from being plucked, such as a harpsichord. And it's also it has a pedal, so you could either sustain, not sustain, and you can really get a lot more musical with the piano, which was really cool at the time because as we develop as a world, the more expressive we can get, the better. Now, with this, speaking of strings, not on a piano, we moved to the string quartet. Now, the string quartet was a really cool idea. It was so basically what a string quartet is it's four people, and obviously it's quartet, and basically what happens is these four people typically play 3 to 4 part harmony against each other and really blend together to make this amazing sound that they create. And it's a really, really pretty thing. Let's see, typically there's a cello, there's a viola, and there's two violins. And these voices work together to kind of create like a choir quartet kind of sounding idea, and it's a really cool experience to go and listen to. I like to listen to string quartets. I'll listen to it 4 times if I can, and I'll pick out an instrument to listen to each time, and I try and hum my way through that part. And it's a really cool thing to practice. It helps with ear training too, which is nice. So yeah, so a string quartet is a chamber ensemble developed for social music making. Now, it's a really cool thing to get together with your buddies and make some music together, make some money, and it's nice to really hear that blend with each other, and the public likes it a lot too, which is great. So next on the list, we get to the symphony. Now, the symphony was derived from Italian opera sinfonia. Typically, back then, a symphony was 3 movements. It went fast, slow, fast. And this was a really cool concept that came out of the symphony because with the 3 movement system that it had, it allowed the listeners and the composers and the players to really experience this program that they're playing, this story that they're telling. It's oftentimes it starts off with a big hit and a pretty reoccurring melody that comes through, and then comes the second movement, and it's like a kind of like a development section with a lot of different keys. It might go to a relative minor or a relative major and really express itself in like a ballad kind of sense. and then finish off with the grand finale. That just leaves everybody on their feet. Real powerful stuff and real emotional experience to perform in a symphony. And I wrote a paper in 202 about Mozart's symphonies on the last three, looking at like Jupiter and whatnot, and it was quite the experience to listen to those and really experience and go and watch the score as it's happening, and it's a really cool experience. I think everyone should have a chance to do that a couple times, many times, hundreds, thousands, and millions of times. And so essentially, as the symphony was growing, it became longer, more movements were added, the symphony size grew a lot actually. It almost doubled, and things just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then you got people like Mahler that are just so extra that it's the most fantastic thing of all time. So next thing I'm going to talk to you a little bit about is simple binary form. Now, simple binary form is two sections featuring music material that is different or loosely related. Now, with simple binary form, it happened a lot around the classical era, and it happened a lot in symphonies and string quartets as well. It was a real grand way of experiencing music, and since the material is a little bit different, it's like calling for more, but it's also giving you the same material that you've already gotten at the beginning, and it's a really cool idea and concept that plays with your ears a little bit and keeps the ball rolling. So next, I'm going to talk to you just a little bit about the concerto. So the concerto is a really cool idea that uses a big orchestra, symphony, or even small accompanied, and it's a chance for the composer to show off a certain instrument, show off themselves, and it's really cool to have just this awesome solo performance with this orchestral background accompanying you instead of just a piano. And one person that was great at this was Giuseppe Tartini. Now, Giuseppe Tartini was born in 1690 and died in 1770, and he played violin. He was known to write concertos for himself to show him off a lot, which is a cool thing. I mean, if you got it, flaunt it. There's no problem with that. Another person that wrote a lot of concertos was J.C. Bach, who, of course, his dates were 1755 to 1782. And he wrote a lot of piano concertos to show him off, which was not a bad thing either. It's a cool time. So, lastly, to cover this little section of Chapter 22, we covered the piano, the string quartet, the symphony, simple binary form, rounded binary form, and the concerto featuring Giuseppe Tartini and J.C. Bach. And thank you.